welcome back everyone. We'd like to talk now about our regressions, as I said before the break. And I think it was really important that you as therapists had regression processes or LightPath journeys yourselves, so that you could of course experience what it's like to go down the light path through the door and into spirit. And it's also good for us as when we're doing this process to be able to work with each other, because it's quite daunting, isn't it, when you want to take someone that you don't know in for the first time. You're kind of thinking, oh, will this work? Or will they go somewhere? What will happen? What if they don't see something? So it's much easier when we were working on each other, or when I was working initially with people that I'd invited to come and do this, because I felt like they were lab rats, and I could, if it didn't quite work out, it was okay. But surprisingly, surprisingly, it always did. You know,
Yes.
There was never a no result. It may not have been what I perceived it would be, or what the person I was working with would perceive it would be. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? We don't know, and that's the wonderful thing. It's like fishing; you never know what you're going to get, do you? So I thought it would be ideal, if you're willing, to share some of your own journeys, LightPath journeys, with the viewers. Virginia, do you want to go first? Talk about your regression process.
Well, I think the first thing going into that state, it is very relaxing. So that's the very first thing I would like to say, because it is. You're in a very relaxed state, and a clear state as well. So you're not aware of anything else that is happening around you. You can just concentrate on your own journey, your own experience. And as far as the regression is concerned, well, they're all different. Each one is actually different. I think that's the fantastic.
That you've experienced.
Yes,
yeah.
They're fantastic in that sense as to what you might experience. For myself personally, I did go back into some. One of them was past lives, but the others were actually not here. They were off planet, and they were channeled messages that came through for the group. There were, and it is your experience. I think that's the main thing. Each experience is different, and I think that's really one thing that we all need to realise is that they are unique. And although we may go in with a question or a feeling at that time, we are not too sure where we're actually going to end up. And I think that is
went all over the place.
and I think that's the really fun part about this. But when you're in there, it's very real. It's extremely real, and I think that's really important. It is your experience, and although those around you might only be hearing part of that experience in voice or in the spoken word,
What you're relaying,
but what you're actually
to the people
feeling,
in the room,
yes, what you're actually feeling and what you're experiencing, and it feels safe. It feels a very safe process as well, and I can't wait to do another one.
You have to do more. Play. It feels like play, doesn't it? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's really good. Bernie, what about you, Minnie?
There's two regressions that stand out for me, and I think because they were two that were quite different. One was quite symbolic. It wasn't really like once we go through the mapping process, we come out with a question, and we did that to start off with. And I remember the very first one that we ever did, we were all feeling quite nervous, and we all had funny tummies, and because it was just the fear of the unknown. But as what's your name? as Virginia said, that it's such a safe, relaxing space to be in. And there was one regression two that stood out, but one was the symbolic one of me standing on a platform, and I could see this person with the old skull caps, you know, in a bathing suit on a platform, sort of on a diving board, and I'm thinking, what is that about, you know? And yeah, it was just a message for me personally to just take the plunge, just dive in head first, and, you know, feel the fear and do it anyway. Because I do tend to sit back, and that particular regression taught me a lot about myself, and that, you know, when you do take that step, it's actually not that bad. And what I found at the bottom of that pool of water was just amazing for me. I won't go into huge details because it was quite long and involved, but yeah, the messages that come through are just amazing. And the other one that stood out for me was as an old man, and I think it was in Agria, and I think we looked it up, didn't we? In fact, we found out it was in Greece somewhere, which Greece has always held a very soft spot in my heart. And I hadn't even known why, but, you know, going into that regression, and as Virginia said, you know, what you're seeing and feeling is just so much bigger than what you can actually voice and tell everybody. But yeah, I just remember the dirt roads and the heat and the going out of the village where I was living to have my time, my space, because it wasn't acceptable, you know, spirituality and those sorts of happenings in that time where I lived weren't acceptable. So I used to leave the village where I lived and go out into the, all I can describe it as is this huge open space, desert, and meditate and be with my guides and things. And then once I went back to the village, I used to talk to lots of little kids, and I was like sort of the storyteller, you know, and I'd be sitting here in my robes, and, you know, they weren't grand by any stretch of the imagination, very old and ragged, but I had all these children at my feet just listening to all my stories, and it was just, I had seen that vision of me in this life and thinking, where is that coming from? What is that about? You know, and then going into that past life and seeing that, it just, everything just made sense, and it just all fell into place, that, you know, it was a longing or a remembrance of what I'd lived before. So
and of course that essence of us, that aspect of us is still with us, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We carry them through into each of our lives, and we can pull on those here now, the storyteller, the children, the
I can
sharing.
understand now why I love kids, you know, at certain ages, and their vulnerability and their ability to absorb so much information, you know, and it comes obviously from that lifetime. I mean, there was a lot more to that regression, but yeah, like Virginia, I want more. I want to see more, you know.
We'll have to LightPath Journey feast or something.
Yeah, it's
been
just
a week
so cool
doing
to
it.
understand more about yourself.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Gail, what about you?
The first regression I had with Olwynne, I was so scared. There's no way she would ever be able to get me to relax enough to go anywhere or do anything. Well, you know, about 3 hours later, I had the most amazing experience. And I was able to look at lifetimes and lifetimes that I'd had with a daughter that I have a difficult relationship with now. But the end of the regression I found really interesting, because it was 2 days before the February earthquake, and it was like I was sitting in a war zone with all this stuff exploding around me. And when those earthquakes happened, I was so calm, and I had no fear of being hurt. I don't know necessarily that the regression and that part of it was actually to do with what was coming up. It just gave me a strength that I didn't know that I had. And I've had several since with the ladies, which have been really cool. And because I don't sleep well and I get really tired, and one of them showed me actually with what I do when I'm asleep, and that I work with storms and natural disasters on the planet.
That's right.
And I'm actually able to channel that energy better now when I'm awake.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. It's just been amazing, and just when I've had difficulties with stuff, to be able to go into that space and look at the people who I'm having problems with in this lifetime and see who and what they were previously.
From a much higher perspective, isn't it?
Yeah. And how the patterns have been repeated, and why, and just how that highest perspective just changes for everybody.
Wonderful. Yeah, cool. Well, thank you, ladies. We're just going to take a break now, and we'll come back and we'll share some more of our stories with you about our LightPath journey together and as individuals. We'll be right back. Introduce you now to the 3 first graduates of the LightPath Institute. They started their training in August last year.
I did. It was so